All right, guys, quick video of your test 6 review. Let's go pretty quick here, knock this thing out. Number one, I'm gonna move stuff over here. Remember, when you're solving an inequality, you can solve it just like an equation. So I'm gonna move that 6x over first. Then I'm gonna move that 7 over, make that 10, divide by 2, it gives you 5. Now it says x is less than 5. Remember, you need the answers in 3 ways, 3 formats. The first is x is less than 5. The second one is your number line. And your third one is your interval notation, which would be from negative infinity to 5 with the parentheses because there's no equal sign. Number two, the fractions, we're going to multiply everything by the LCD, which in this case is 24. Multiply all the way through by 24. So what happens when you do that is you can cancel those fractions. 6 times 3 is 18. It's negative 18x right there. Here, 8 goes in there 3 times. 3 times the 5 is 15. 3 goes into 24 8 times. 8 times 2 is 16. So I'm going to move the 16x over with the 18x. Gives me negative 34x is greater than negative 15. I'm dividing by negative, which means I'm going to flip that sign. My answer becomes positive. Don't forget your number line with the 15/34 less than. And don't forget your interval notation. Negative infinity to 15/34 with a bracket this time because of the equal sign. Perfect. Number three is a conjunction. Solve all 3 sides at the same time. I'm going to subtract 1 from everywhere. That gives me 5x is less than 2 and greater than negative 4. Divide everything by 5. Gives me 2/5 and negative 4/5. Draw your number line. Your number line will have 2 numbers this time. We'll have a negative 4/5 and a 2/5. Filled in circles, shade in between. Your interval notation, negative 4/5 to 2/5. And there you go. Number 4 is an OR. It's a disjunction. Solve both sides, so I'm going to move that 1 over, make that negative 4, divide by 3, get negative 4/3, or, don't forget the or, move this 1 over, I get 6, divide by 3, I get 2, don't forget your number line, I'm going to go less than negative 4/3 with an empty circle, greater than 2 with an empty circle. I'm going to have 2 intervals this time because I shaded 2 areas, so negative infinity to negative 4/3, union 2 to infinity, and there's 4. Number 5, 6, and 7 are all just slope, real quick slope problems. You can tell everyone by looking. This one's in slope-intercept form, which is there's a slope. Y equals mx plus b. X equals represents a vertical line, so that slope is undefined. Y equals a number, represents a horizontal line, so the slope is 0. Number 8 looks like a word problem. It's really just a slope because it says average rate of change here. So I'm going to write those as points. In the year 2000, the population was 124,943. In the year 2010, the population was 102,434. And remember, when you do slope, and the reason I put those years first is because they want the change per year. So per year, so the per part goes on the bottom per year. So I'm going to do y2 minus y1, just a slope formula, because that's all it's asking. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I get, let's see, 10 on the bottom. On the top, I'm getting negative 22,509. If I divide that by 10, I get negative 2250.9. And that's how much the population is decreasing per year over the 10-year period. Number 9 through 12 is all point slope stuff and slope intercept. Number 9 is great because they gave you both the slope and the intercept, so you can just fill in your equation without doing any work whatsoever. Y equals 2/9 x minus 7. Number 10, they give you a point and a slope. Sounds like point slope to me. So I'm going to go y plus 1 equals my slope times x plus 5. Distribute the 2 here, negative 2x minus 10. Then let's move the 1 over. I get negative 2x minus 11. And that's all you got to do on that one. Number 11. This time they don't tell you the slope, so you have to find the slope. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to say slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So it gives me negative 12 over 2, which is negative 6. There's my slope. You can pick either one of these points you want to. I'm going to take the second one just because it looks a little smaller. So I'm going to y plus 5 is negative 6 times x plus 1. Distribute that 6. And move the 5. If I move that 5 over there, it becomes minus 5, so it gives me negative 11. And there's that one. Number 12 It's exactly the same thing we just did. It doesn't look like it, but it is. Remember, these usually say g of x. So that 1 right there is your x, the 4 is the y, negative 2 is the x, and 13 is the y. So I'm gonna do the same exact thing on the 12 I did on 11. Find the slope first. I'm doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Gives me 9 over negative 3, which is negative 3. There's my slope. I'm going to pick that point because 1 and 4 is quite a bit smaller. So I'm saying y minus 4 is negative 3 times x minus 1. Same old steps. Distribute the negative 3 and move the 4 over. If I move that 4 over there, comes plus 4. It's going to be plus 7. So there's my equation. But it also says this. It says find g of 2. Okay, to find g of 2, I'm going to actually take the 2 and plug it in for the x. So it's going to be negative 3 times 2 plus 7, which is going to be 1. So g of 2 is 1. So make sure you get both answers there. At 13 and 14, you're just checking slope. On 13, the slopes are reciprocals, but they're not opposite reciprocals. So that's a neither. They are neither parallel or perpendicular. The way you do slope in standard form when you have x on the same side as you do negative a over b. So the slopes of both of those lines, the first one is negative 1 over 2. The second one is negative 2 over 4. And those are really the same thing. So that means they are parallel right there for 14. 15, right, 2 answers here for 15. You got to do a parallel equation, and you also got to do a perpendicular equation. So the slope's right there. Slope is going to be 2. So there's my point, there's my slope. So the parallel one, I'm just going to go y minus 6 equals the slope times x plus 1. Same steps as usual. I'm going to distribute the 2x plus 2, and then move the 6 over. So I get 2x plus 8. That's the parallel one. That's part A. Part B, I'm going to use the same setup, except this time for slope, I could use the opposite reciprocal. I had 2 a second ago, so now it's going to become negative 1/2 times the x plus 1. So I'm going to distribute negative 1/2, which is negative 1/2 x minus 1/2. Move the 6 over. And if I move that 6 over, it becomes plus 6. So I'm doing 6 times 2 minus 1, which is 11/2. And there you have it for that one. Okay, I need to erase those because I wrote all over 16. 16 is the non-stop calculator. I don't really know what to do with this one to teach you. I guess I can talk you through. But I'm going to go to stat. Let's see, stat, edit. I'm going to clear my list out if there's anything in there. Right now there's not. So I'm typing all those numbers in. Once you get the numbers in, you're going to go to, make sure your stat plot's on, go to Zoom 9. When you go to Zoom 9, you will see your graph. So I'm going to make a rough sketch here of my graph. There's like a point on the y-axis. There's points coming up, and it basically will jump, and it kind of looks like that. Then you go stat calc, linreg, which is number 4. Go to calculate. It's going to tell you everything you need for part B. It tells you y equals 1.18x plus 14.01 is your equation. It tells you your r. If it doesn't tell you your R, check with me tomorrow. I hope you turn that back on. And then you need to make a prediction. Instead of 2015, 2015 is year 10. So I'm going to take the number 10. I'm going to plug it in for that x right there. So I'm going to go 1.18 times 10 plus 14.01. I'm getting 25.8. So that whole side, that left side right there is the answer for 16. 17. Says find f of a minus 3. To find f of a minus 3, I'm just going to plug in that a minus 3 everywhere I see an x, which is there and there. And I got to work all that out. So the first part is square. Multiply together, double, square. Then I've got this 3 here. I'm going to distribute that 3 and then add what I can. A squared is by itself. Got a negative 3a. The 9's cancel, which leaves a minus 4. That's all you got for that one. Number 18. Find an equation for the circle. There's the center. Remember, the opposite goes in the center. The opposite of the x and the opposite of the y coordinate goes in the center. You got to figure out what goes on the other side. Because it passes through 4, 5, don't forget, that means it works. 4, 5 works in the equation. It solves the equation. That's why it passes through there. So I'm going to plug a 4 in for the x. And if I do that, 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. That's 4. I'm going to plug a 5 in for the y. 5 plus 5 is 10 squared, which is 100. So it gives me 104. And that's what I've got. That's your answer. You should have an x and y in your answer. 2 parentheses squared, plus sign, and a radius. 19 is just domain. What can x not be? So I'm going to say all x such that x cannot equal 0 because that makes that 0. And also 2/3 because 2/3 makes the parentheses 0. And that's 19. 20, the last one finally. On my numerator, first of all, it's division, so I'm gonna go keep, change, flip, and factor stuff. So my first one right there, that's small, big, cube root, square, multiply, change the sign, square. The denominator down there, that's the difference of squares, such as a plus 1, a minus 1. Now my second fraction, I'm flipping, that's going to the bottom, but it won't factor. There's no factors of 1 that will give you 1, so I'm just going to leave it like that. The bottom, which is going to the top, does factor into a plus 1, because 1 plus 1 is 2, and 1 times 1 is 1. Now I'm looking at stuff to factor, cancel. The a plus 1's cancel. This big thing right there cancels with that big thing right there, and the a minus 1's cancel. So all that leaves me with is the a plus 1, which, by the way, that's your solution. That's your practice test. Hope it helped. I know you're going to do great tomorrow. You always do. See you then.